Welcome to Unlocking Your Truth, another podcast by Dr. Lesley Phillips.
Hello everybody and welcome to Unlocking Your Truth with Dr. Lesley. My name is Dr. Lesley Phillips and I am your host. And as usual, I'm in the studio with the producer Corey.
Hello.
And today is one of those days when we have a wonderful guest to introduce you to. But before I introduce our guest, I will just explain a little bit about the show in case you're listening for the first time. Unlocking Your Truth is a talk show, and we focus very much on topics to do with metaphysics, spirituality, intuition, and energy healing, because that's what we're really passionate about, and we really want to educate you, the listeners, about those topics and answer your questions as well. And so today is no exception. And our fabulous guest that we have on this week is called Virginia Dudley. Now, Virginia is a clairvoyant and a healer, and she specializes in readings that provide information and insight from a spiritual perspective. So she gives you information about your spiritual growth that's relevant to your present life experiences. She focuses on validating spirit and providing extensive and valuable information on present and past experiences and support for accessing everybody's natural healing abilities. She's got over 20 years of formal training as a reader and a healer, and with her natural intuition and she uses it with her natural intuition to offer support and spiritual guidance to you listeners. So we're really lucky to have Virginia on the show today. Welcome, Virginia.
Thank you very much, Lesley. Wow, what a wonderful introduction. Thank you.
Oh, you're so welcome. And so we've taken today's show topic from your teachings and what you teach people. So tell us more about the philosophy behind your work.
Well, to put it in one little sentence, I would say that the philosophy is that we are spirit, we are spiritual beings, we are bright sparks of the divine, and we're in bodies, living here on earth. And spirit and body are meant to work together. So, we're here on this beautiful planet of Earth where it's the planet of duality. So we've got, of course, the basic duality there is spirit and body, good, bad, male, female, light, dark, etc., etc. And through our millions of daily experiences, we learn and grow. I would say it seems on our planet, though, that there's been an imbalance between spirit and body, and we've had most of our attention on the body and the body's needs, body's wants, body. And I'd say we're quite out of balance. We're kind of imbalanced. And at the same time, though, there is a growing awareness of people, what they call waking up to their selves of spirit, which is so wonderful. And so in this transition time particularly, I'm really excited to be involved in teaching spiritual techniques to anybody who wants to, easy, simple techniques that we can all learn to help us validate and use our spiritual nature.
Great. And that was kind of really interesting what you said about the imbalance on the planet and how the majority of humans have focused solely on the physical body and lost the connection with their spiritual self, their spiritual identity. Do you think it's also true that sometimes those who then embark upon what we call a spiritual journey forget about the body? So we have like the opposite thing going on with some people.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And neither way is going to be very helpful. We're looking for balance. We're looking for balance, just like the yin yang sign, with a little bit of each of the other section. Yes. And I think there also has to be something that I'm noticing is that there's an awful lot of spiritual, well, let's say named spiritual practices. I mean, they're called something spiritual, and they're not really about being in touch with spirit. They're still quite involved with the ego of the body and being good and best and better. And so that's something too that, we can all be watchful for.
Right.
Yeah. Occasionally we'll get some logical people or people that are totally in their mind call up, and I can hear the question now. I can hear the question from them. What percentage is balanced? 50-50? Is it 60-40? And if I'm not balanced, what do I do to change it?
Yeah. Well, it's a very personal thing, that balance, and it changes. I would say it changes daily. It might even change minute by minute, and how do we know? The more we start using particular practices, we just get more in tune with ourselves and our bodies, and our information actually just comes bubbling up the less we kind of try to force things and get specific answers that may or may not have any value really. About what really matters is how balanced you feel in your life and how are you living your life.
So the key is being connected and aligned, body and spirit working together, and then you can get your own unique answers about what being balanced is for you. Exactly. In any particular moment.
Right.
So Virginia, I'm curious about how you got to be where you are now. What were the experiences that you had growing up that led you to the realization that you were spiritual consciousness, which is what you teach about now, and that you were intuitive and had intuitive abilities and healing abilities? What kinds of things happened that sparked your focus on that?
Yeah, thank you. Well, first of all, it's happened when I was quite a young child, about 4 years old. And I want to say that this is an exciting experience for me, but I think young children are so open and all of us have our spiritual abilities there with us when we're born, and quite open in the first 4 years of life. And so there's nothing particularly special about that, but as for me, there was an event that happened when I was about 4, and just I know that I was just looking in a mirror. Don't know exactly why, just a little kid curious, and I guess I was sort of staring at myself. And then a spirit lifted straight out of my body through the top of my head. And I went up above, and I could look down, see myself perfectly standing in the room. And I was very aware that I was kind of my invisible self, but I looked like me as well. So, and then I just came right back into my body. And as far as I know, I only did that once, and I don't know if I spoke about it. I was very young, but it actually was years later that it all came sort of back to me in meditation class, actually, when I remember the scene. But so I knew I was spirit. I didn't need to be told or taught or learn a lesson or have anybody. I experienced it quite dramatically. So that was always there, and I think I know for sure it was always a support through my life, that I knew something's up. Something is going on. There's, that I am myself and this body, but I am more than that, because I'd experienced it. I wouldn't have intellectualized it at all, of course, in any way like that, but it was the experience so strong.
Did you realize that most other people didn't realize the same thing that you did?
I think I did. I kind of have that. It's hard for me to be able to really answer that, but when I as I say, as an adult in meditation, and it came back quite clearly, I would say that I just took it. I just took this event, and I don't remember telling anybody or having anybody tell me that's just baloney or anything like that. It was just mine, I guess. And, but I don't remember being, asking and being told, oh, don't be ridiculous, or that can't be true, or what are you talking about? It may have happened, but I don't really remember it as such. I don't think so.
So that sounds like an early event that triggered you on this path of eventually becoming a spiritual teacher. Were there other formative moments along the way?
Well, this is sort of in a broader way, definitely, and that was we were Catholics and went to Mass and went to church a lot. And I went to a Catholic school as well, and there was lots of times of going to churches when I was with the school. So many, many, many times I went, and I just loved it. I loved how sparkly it was. To me, it was just like, wow, look, God lives here, angels live here, all the saints live here. And again, when I look at it now, I realize that my clairvoyance was opening. I was seeing the angels, I was seeing the energy, I was seeing the sparkle and the gold. And I do remember talking about that and having people just stare blankly at me like, really? Or isn't that cute? Or something. And I thought, don't you see it? And I actually, an older, maybe at about 10 years old, 8 or 10, I used to go by myself just to go in because I had just loved the experience. And when I used to go and there'd be a service going on, I also liked the feeling of it. And I would say that was what we call clairsentience, the ability to feel the feelings of others. And that sense of, that also was one of the reasons I liked it so much. It was like, oh, and there's a community, like there's people here who agree with each other, who agree in their feelings and what they're doing. And so those experiences in particular are the ones that began
right and so,
the journey.
Yes, and so now you spend your time guiding other people into the realization that they are spirit. How do you do that?
Usually people have some inclination, I would say, first of all, before they even come in. But as far as guiding people to know themselves as spirit, I do it mostly, through either doing clairvoyant reading, which is a way of looking at the spiritual being and giving information about what I see about the person as spirit and what they're going through in their life. And also through meditation and healing classes, where I teach people specific techniques to help them, first of all, come into their body, even if they think they already are, move in a little more closer as spirit. And then there's specific, very powerful and very easy techniques to begin to get in touch with themselves as spirit.
Well, that's great. And after we're going to go to a break now, but after the break, I'd like to ask you more about your work that you do and the meditation and everything. And so, listeners, we're going to go to a short break, and we will be back talking to our guest Virginia Dudley about We Are Spirit after these few short messages. And you've been listening to Unlocking Your Truth with Dr. Lesley on 101.7 FM on CIVL, live streaming from civl.ca, and of course available on my website, drlesleyphillips.com, as a podcast. Welcome back, listeners. You're tuning in to Unlocking Your Truth with Dr. Lesley and with Corey as well. And today we have a fantastic guest on the show. Her name is Virginia Dudley. And we've been talking to Virginia about how we are all aspects of divine consciousness, how we are spirit. And we've been talking about how can we validate our spiritual nature and our spiritual abilities using simple, powerful techniques for spiritual development. And so let's explore that notion a bit more deeply, Virginia. So what does it mean to be spirit? What does it mean to be an eternal consciousness in your experience? And what are some examples of helping us understand that you can tell us about?
Well, spirit is or what sometimes is called the soul, is the essential being that is in the body. We can experience ourselves as spirit by, we might say an inner voice that we hear, where it's that internal dialogue that we all have in our own voice, which is our sort of deeper self, the essence of ourselves that has all information and is we are connected, but sometimes as the body we don't tune in. So what meditation techniques do are help us to, as I said, bring more of yourself as spirit into the body. Well, first prepare the body for raising the vibration by bringing spirit into the body, and validating it.
You also do past life readings, don't you? I'm sure that must be a way for a lot of people to validate that they're more beyond the current body that they have.
Oh, absolutely. I think it's probably one of the favorite things that people ask for when they, it is part of the reading that I do anyway, but people are always, even if they didn't know it was part of the reading, they're delighted to know. And absolutely, it validates that you're the soul being who is eternal, which of course is one of those parts of the duality of the body is mortal, and a soul is immortal. But in the reading, the information that comes up from the past life is information that is carried from one life to the other. And that's why the readings in and of themselves are very interesting. But it's the most important part is what information from that life is valuable in this life. And when people hear that and make a connection between a situation from the past and themselves, and it really is valuable to them and they connect with it, they feel like, oh, yes, it's a validation that they're spirit, that there's had many experiences from this life and from many, many other lives.
Yeah, it's funny, when you were talking earlier about your experience leaving your body, it just occurred to me that wasn't an accident, and that you came in with that information from your own previous lifetimes.
Also, in using the meditation techniques, you can literally feel the energy. You can start feeling your spiritual energy coming into your body or flowing through your body in a more heightened way than I'd say we usually do, unless we're using some sort of meditation and focus. So that's another way where people really realize or clue in to themselves as spirit. Yes.
I have a question.
Great.
Okay, you had mentioned earlier that when you were younger, you were Catholic, going to Catholic church and doing that whole thing. What would you recommend for people who are feeling the urge to make that type of shift into something, or know that there's something different out there other than that mainstream religion that they're following, what advice would you give them on how to do this? And thinking about all the adjuncts to that, like family that come down on them, and you've got all this, and maybe they're married, maybe they have kids. What would you advise them?
Well, I would say that once you get that sort of information within yourself, it's kind of hard to completely push it away. But they might be able to, at least, I would say, go, step by step, maybe baby step by baby step, reading information about that past lives, for instance, or about being spirit that have nothing to do with any dogma. Then, and then it is sometimes, it can be a very challenging situation, though, especially with families, because there's such strong belief systems. But I have, over the years, met people who have done that successfully. And one thing that I'll say is there has to be a bit of, not more than a bit sometimes, courage to say, well, knowing inside that the person who wants to explore spirituality, that it's a very good thing, and it's going to be something very good for them and for the family. And sometimes we're asked to do the hard thing and not take responsibility for the reactions of others about what we do. And but you can still have kindness and openness and go at your own pace, really.
Yeah, because I find having done the same, I find that mainstream religion bases most of their beliefs on exactly that, faith and belief in something that's not seen or heard. But when I made the shift, I didn't make that shift lightly. I made it because I knew there was no question. There was no, as far as I was sure before, there was a different type of surety there. And so I had to make that shift. It must be difficult for people that are having that slight inkling of disbelief. But I think when you're faced with what I would call truth, then the truth pulls you into that direction where everything is right, for the lack of a better term.
Right, I would agree. It's very powerful.
Yeah.
And
Sorry, go on.
No, I was just thinking it requires a level of commitment that sometimes can take quite a while to get, especially if it's all tangled up in family relationships. But a little incident just came to mind when we were talking about that. I was doing a reading for a young person, and one of my readings is called a rose reading. And in that reading, I also look at past lives. And so this person, she was very keen, and for the reading, and then I told her, and then we'll look at a past life. And she said, "Oh no, it's against my religion. I can't. Absolutely not." That. I said, "Okay, well, of course, that's fine. Are you okay with the first part?" And so she was saying yes. And she was very open to knowing herself as spirit, and she'd already had a lot of experiences by herself that really validated her spirituality. So by the time we got to the end of the rose reading, and then she said, "You know what? I'd like to hear about a past life." And in that short time, she had, been validated as spirit, and it left her in a place of feeling very secure and open. She felt like there was nothing wrong, that it was going to be supportive.
So let's talk a little bit more about meditation. Do you have to have a certain belief set in order for meditation to benefit you? Can everybody benefit from meditation, do you think?
I do think so. I don't think you need to have any kind of belief system. I think you have to do it. These are techniques, the way I teach meditation, and I say for many types of meditation, the techniques are neutral. They're just, here's it, do this, and follow in this particular fashion. And it's body and soul working very well together. There's a lot of communication and interaction between body and spirit in this type of meditation. And yeah, that it makes it easier for people.
So we're going to go to another break in about 4 minutes or so. Do you think you can take us through a really short meditation before we go to the ads? Would that be okay?
Oh, okay, sure. That sounds wonderful, actually. Okay, so the first thing about the meditation is to be sitting in a chair with your feet flat on the floor and your hands separate in your lap. And just closing your eyes gently. Closing the eyes helps to turn your vision, your sight, your perspective, your focus from outside to inside. And then allow yourself to just be aware of your breathing. You don't have to change it at all. Just notice the inhale and exhale at the natural pace that you have right now. And I'll just give you a chance to do a couple of deep breaths. Let yourself be aware of your heartbeat as well. When we draw our attention to our breathing and to our heartbeat, it helps us, the spirit, to be focused in the body, into the present moment. Our bodies are always in the present moment. So by just taking these clues from the physical world, the spirit, we can know where present time is. It's right here, right now in this body. The first thing I teach, and we use all the time in every practice, is called grounding, which is making a spiritual connection, an energy connection from an area near the base of your spine, called the first chakra, all the way down to the center of the earth. So, without any effort at all, just simply allow a flow of energy from that place near the base of your spine and let it flow through the chair, the floor, through all the layers of the earth. And let that energy flow, called a grounding cord, let it go all the way to the center and connect it to the center of the earth. You now have a connection which brings you as spirit more into your body, connects spirit and body, connects your body to the big body of the earth. Which brings stability. It draws that attention again into the present moment. Notice your body. Notice perhaps your body is more relaxed. It might feel a little heavier as you're connected to the earth. And then you'll just allow yourself as spirit, that bright spark of the divine, to come into the center of your head. Our spirit, wherever we put our attention, that's where we go. And remember, with all meditation techniques, there's no effort. So just with that intention of having the bright spark that's you settle in the center of your head. And notice how you feel and how you've got spirit and body in these few minutes connecting with our wonderful earth.
Thank you so much, Virginia. That was fantastic. That feels really good to be grounded and centered, that's for sure.
Yes.
So we're going to take another quick break, and then after the break, we'd like to ask you if you'd be willing to help some of our listeners with some of the questions that they've written into the show about. Would that be okay?
Oh, that's wonderful. Thank you. Yeah.
All right. Well, so listeners, you've been listening to Unlocking Your Truth with Dr. Lesley and Corey, and this week with Virginia Dudley, who we've been having a wonderful conversation and wonderful exploration of our spiritual nature together here. And we will be back after these few short messages. And by the way, you're listening to us on 101.7 FM on CIVL. Welcome back, listeners. You're still listening to Unlocking Your Truth with Dr. Lesley. And this week on Unlocking Your Truth, we've been exploring our spiritual nature with our guest, Virginia Dudley, who is a spiritual teacher. And she teaches meditation, amongst other things, and she does clairvoyant readings and healings. And so at this time in the show, we always like to share with our guests some of our listeners' questions. And so today's no exception. We want to make the most of having Virginia on the show and make the most of her wisdom and knowledge. So, Corey, do we have any questions that would be good ones to ask Virginia?
Okay, listeners, they're all good questions. Don't panic. I have lots of questions. Unfortunately, I don't have any past life questions, but here's one from Cloud. He's one of our regular questioners. She loves to question.
We changed their names, by the way, so Cloud isn't her real name.
So she says, hello, I wanted to know if you could tell me what one of my stronger intuitive abilities are. I know that sometimes I get sensations in my body that tell me things. Sometimes I get flashes of answers to things. I question in my head, and sometimes my less noticeable thoughts give me hints of things to do or pay attention to that I don't always pay attention to, but when it comes to developing these things, it kind of feels like trying to find my way in the dark. The signs are very subtle. I overthink a lot, and most times they get drowned out. So I want to know what ability is one of the ones that are more pronounced than the rest that I can begin developing. Thank you.
That's a really great question.
Wow.
By the way, all our listeners, very few of them know how to punctuate.
Okay. So Cloud, thank you for that wonderful question. I will say the first thing that comes up though is, again, we were talking in the meditation about no effort as spirit. And the sort of bugaboo of everything with effort, we're just always validated for using effort in our bodies and for work and for everything that we do. And it doesn't work for spiritual techniques of any kind. And so the first thing I did notice that you've got some effort, energy, that's influencing you, because you were saying you were, not so clear on which abilities were opening up, were coming to you, and that the messages were a little bit mixed. So I would just say the first thing, it would be just, that using that grounding cord, letting go of effort down the grounding cord, and then tuning into yourself. But the ability that came up first was clairsentience, which is that ability to feel the feelings of others. And it seems to me that is quite well developed in you, and it's been there since you were very small. And I'm seeing one thing you're learning about this ability, this clairsentience, is to, and it's always the cautionary tale of, is not letting yourself, you can feel the feelings of others and take that information in whatever way seems appropriate, but it's not to draw that energy into your system and try to bring it in and feel the feelings for them in your system. And just one last little thing was about the inner voice, which is spirit to body and body to spirit. And I'm seeing that that's the part that you're really working on clearing and opening up. And then when you get really clearing in the fifth chakra and the throat chakra, and that you get that open communication between body and spirit, then it becomes, all of these questions that you were asking the answers are just easier to hear. Yeah.
Thank you so much. And I would just validate what you said. I saw something similar. And then the only other thing that I got was also the knowingness in the crown chakra, and that the other signals, because of this thing that you were talking about with having other people's energy in her space, that was confusing some of the messages coming through in other ways, and that crown chakra to me looked a little bit clearer. Maybe like the first, and then as she clears the rest of her system, that she's potentially can gain more clarity from the other aspects. So there you go, Cloud. That gives you lots of information about you and what's going on with your spiritual abilities. Do we have another listener's question, Corey?
Oh, we have a question from another listener. Okay, this is from Lynn, and she asking, I'm not feeling heard or understood in parentheses by people lately. Something must be needing my attention, or I must be needing to learn something about this.
Wow, these questions are great.
Oh, yeah, some of them are really good.
Wow. Well, I get, inner voice is what popped up immediately. And that the inner voice is our spiritual ability as to have direct and clear communication between body and spirit. And the not being heard, I'm seeing that it has to do with your body feeling that it just isn't being heard, that your body has wants some changes, lifestyle changes. And so it might be to do with diet and exercise. It might be to do with even work or any sort of aspects of life. There's a whole lot of things that your body, I'm just seeing it has a lot to say and always a lot to say. And it's, your body's looking for a much wider thoroughfare, we'll say, between body and spirit. So there's an open communication that so that your body is heard. And I'll totally validate you that you're getting your own attention by having this sense of, I'm not being heard. Like there's a discomfort within you that's there on purpose. And it is essentially your inner voice getting your own attention about, okay, just sit down and, giving yourself a break, but, giving yourself an opportunity, and maybe more than once, to really tune into yourself and see what it is that your body would like to share.
Yes, and it looks like she's clearing some pain around past time experiences where she felt like she wasn't able to completely express her own authentic voice. Yeah, so thank you. Corey, I'm sure we've got time for one or even two more questions.
We've got a little more time. We have a few more minutes. I'll let you know. I'm going to be in charge today. I have a question from Louise. She asks a very interesting question, actually. I love the way they ask it. Some of the listeners ask questions, but they answer their question by asking the question, if you understand what I mean. And this question is, have I subconsciously chosen a partner who's not good for me?
Oh, wow.
They're good questions, not necessarily easy questions.
Yeah. Okay, let's see. Well, the first thing that comes up is that it's not really very subconscious. It seems like you're quite aware in many, many ways of what's going on within you, and the let's just say the complexities of relationships. And I'm seeing you be, from a spiritual perspective, a spirit, you have a huge agenda of development and change and growth that you're wanting to kind of accelerate. And I'm seeing you in this relationship that you've chosen. It's providing you with a lot of stimuli for doing a lot of your own healing. And particularly getting rid of or letting go of past painful experiences, particularly in relationships. I'm just seeing you're really wanting to move your whole system into present time more, letting go of the past, letting go of the energy of others again, which often happens in relationship. And yes, but I would agree with you that there's sort of a grand plan. Yeah.
That's exactly what I saw as well. That this relationship offers a tremendous growth opportunity, which is very appealing to you, the spiritual consciousness. Maybe not always enjoyable by you, the body personality, though.
Yeah.
Oh, so Corey, what's our next question?
Okay, I have a couple. Here's one that's interesting. This is from Ari, and Ari, she wants to know, I feel very connected to spirit when creating art. How or what would spirit like me to do to connect with them more deeply so I can continue to channel creative energy?
That's a cool question.
Yeah, totally.
Well, I just see there's such a beautiful image at first that I saw, which was just how much gratitude, I will say, that spirit has for your the artwork that you do, because the artwork itself is a spiritual action, and it's spiritual information, and everything is vibration, and your artwork is going to higher and higher levels of vibration, so that it's more than something beautiful to look at, which of course that's there, but it's there's an essence of healing quality in your artwork that's coming more and more, and perhaps that's what it is, that you feel like, what more can I do? But your work is, the way I'm seeing it, the energy is going up, up, up on every piece that you do, and it looks like you accepted, I'll say it that way, a role of being a healer, an artist, healer, artist as well. And there's a tremendous amount of healing that happens for you when you are doing your artwork. because it's so validating. You're in the zone. You're in the place of the vibration that's your unique vibration, and therefore what you're doing is, and to be in for each and every one of us to be in that our own personal unique spiritual vibration is the quickest and the most wonderful healing of all. That's what I get.
Yeah, I completely agree. The only extra thing I got to say, because the question was it something like what can I do to the answer I got was it's like the more you intend, the more you focus on your goal, like focus on that direct connection with source energy and with spirit. The other thing, because one of the things I picked up with is that there's a tremendous amount of beings who are interested in what she's doing, and many of them are helper beings, but it looks like some of them have their own bent or perspective on things, and so I'm seeing that sort of keeps her sometimes spinning slightly outside of her direct line of connection with spirit. So what Virginia just said was, the more you're in touch with, it's a different way of saying the more that you're in touch with your unique spiritual vibration, then the more that you're expressing your unique healing perspective through your art. So focus really was the little bit of guidance that I got. Stay focused on that flow of energy from your source.
Absolutely.
Have we got time for one more, Corey? Yeah, I guess this is actually a short one, and this one was asked a little while back. I thought we weren't going to do another one. Oh yes, and I have an answer for her, but I'll love to see what you guys have to say. And this is from Rosie, and Rosie says, I have been corresponding for about 6 months with a man named da 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 da. I loaned him money, and now I feel insecure.
So, well, I would validate her feelings, that insecurity, that she didn't exactly say what should I do, which is good because you want to tell people what to do. But I would say it's valuable to have your own intuitive reading of what's going on. So there's the validation of your ability to see and read and is there and growing. So in other words, trusting yourself to see the situation as it truly is, and from the truth shall set you free in whatever way that is, and for however long you need. But I'd say trust yourself. I would agree with you.
Yeah, I agree too. Trust yourself, and if it feels uncertain. I mean, we didn't get a lot of information about how she came to lend the money, and if he said he'd pay her back or any of that. But it sounds like it's not panning out like perhaps you'd hoped it would. So trust your gut, trust your instincts, trust your intuition.
Yeah, I agree. I've had experiences, we all have had them, where we're walking down the street and their panhandlers are there asking for money. And sometimes I give and sometimes I don't. And I give when the spirit says give. In other words, if the spirit tells me give, give me a sharp rap, I stop and I give. And it'll actually tell me give more or give, as well. And what I would advise her is that she's given him this money and she has loaned it. But I'm sure that she did it for a very specific reason, and you really can't take money and relationship and have one depend on the other, because then your relationship will never work and your money will never work as well. And so in this sense, I'd say when you're lending somebody money like that, do it with an open heart, whether or not it comes back.
Right.
Thanks, Corey.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Well, we've reached the end of the show, unfortunately. It would be lovely to keep going, wouldn't it? So Virginia, thank you so much for being on Unlocking Your Truth. It's been wonderful, and thank you for your calming energy. I think we all feel more grounded having you join us today. So if our listeners would like to connect with you, how can they go about doing that?
The best way is the website, www.readingswithvirginia.com, and then all the information is there.
So all the information about the readings, the healings, and the classes that you teach is at readingswithvirginia.com.
Correct.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much once again. And listeners, you've been listening to Unlocking Your Truth with Dr. Lesley and with Corey and our guest, Virginia Dudley, where we've explored our nature as spiritual beings and spiritual consciousness. We'll be back next Tuesday at 7 o'clock Pacific time on 101.7 FM on CIVL, broadcasting across the Fraser Valley. And you can catch us on any of the major podcasting platforms and on my website, drlesleyphillips.com. You can go and listen to this episode again if you like. See you next time.
Thank you so much, Lesley. Thank you.
You're welcome.
And Corey.
Thank you. Thank you for joining us. You've been listening to another Unlocking Your Truth podcast by Dr. Lesley Phillips. For more information, go to our website at drlesleyphillips.com. That's drlesleyphillips.com, where you can ask questions or send her an email, and there's many free gifts on there for you as well. Come back again.